What's up, YouTube? I'm back at it again with my Simplicity 2333 Mad Hatter costume. This is going to be a relatively short video. These are the problems that I've had with this costume. Alright, so I've probably mentioned a few of these earlier on. I'm not quite done, but I think I'm at a point where I'm able to talk about the issues that I see with it. So, number one is the Mad Hatter hat is not included in this costume. The Captain Hook hat is included with the pattern in the costume, so great, you've got that hat, and that's all fine and dandy. So is this thing, it's called a Jabbit. This this scarf is also not included in this pattern, so it's very frustrating. If you want to make this costume and you're doing the Mad Hatter, you really just get the jacket. And I think that they may have, as I said in an earlier video, they discontinued this, and I think it's probably because of some of the problems with the costume, including the fact that some of the major parts, at least for the Mad Hatter, don't seem to be there. Next, in the design, I think this is just kind of lame. So here's, Captain Hook, here's the Mad Hatter. There's a differentiation, and I'm going to show some of it here in the pattern. In the cutting diagram, it was recommended that you cut out these little pieces. You cut out 4 of them, put interfacing on 2 of the sides, and I started to make it until I realized that it says, I just didn't look at the costume close enough. It says these are flaps. So there's 4 of these things, and they're relatively small, and they are what they say they are. They're flaps. As I started making the costume, I saw there's a variation here, or a branch in the pattern. So you finish making the skirt, you start making the outside of the skirt, then you're starting to work on the top of the skirt, and you're either making the pockets or the flaps. And I realized the Mad Hatter costume just has these weird kind of like appendages flapping off the side of the costume, and those are flaps. I mean, I don't know who would want that. I don't, and I don't think that they seem very much fun. So I changed the pattern, and instead I had some extra material, and I went and I cut out pockets, and I followed the instructions for the pockets, and I put the pockets and sewed those onto the pattern. My costume, to the extent that I have it, or where I have it right now, it's over here. So I'll go take a look at that in the costume a little bit, and I'm going to show something that's going on under the lining and the skirt as well. So, just kind of weird and lame that the Mad Hatter has flaps, not pockets. I mean, pockets are a lot more versatile and nice, so I just made the pockets instead, and that wasn't too hard to do. The next thing that I have a problem with, and this appears to be a real bit of a problem, I think, maybe there's something I'm doing wrong here. So as you're continuing on, after you've made the pockets, and this is where I am right now, I'm making the lining. So here's what it tells me to do for the lining. So make the lining in the same manner as the coat back. So you're going to sew these guys together, the 2 halves, make this pleated seam at the back of it where there's going to be a little button on the outside. Press up 1 inch on the lower edge of the lining, forming the hem. And then to ease in the fullness, you're going to stitch a 1/4 inch from the raw edge, and using a long machine stitch, and you can pull up the stitching so that the hem will lie flat, and then you press it, shrinking out the fullness, and slip stitch the hem in place. Okay, so you've got 2 sections of the back, 2 more sections that are going to wrap around to the front, and it's showing this is the wrong side of the lining, and it's showing those kind of get folded up, and you're going to make a 1 inch, what do you call it? A 1 inch hem, I guess. We're going to press a 1 inch on the lower edge, forming the hem. Yeah, so we're going to fold up a 1 inch hem there, and then we're going to put this other little strip on here that's got some more interfacing on it. Well, you can't do that. As you see here, the 2 back sections sew onto this side section. These are also going to connect to another side section over here. I'm sorry, it's not going to connect to a side section over there. Oh, I might have messed up some of the part that I did. Uh-oh, I got a bit of a problem. All right, well, I have a problem, and I'll have to fix that, but there's another problem here that is not my fault, at least I think. I'll have to see. It's this hem, though. This is the problem, and I'm going to go take a look at what happens here on the costume. So I've got these 2 halves. Let's see if I can zoom out a little bit. So I think I was not supposed to sew this on. I'm going to have to go through here with my seam ripper and take that off, I think, because this is supposed to be, I'm not sure where that's supposed to be, but I'll cross that bridge a little bit later. But I think I sewed that on incorrectly. But this is the problem. There is not a consistent seam here. These are not the same length. So these are started at the same point up here, and it goes down to a very different hemline. So this has like an inch that it hangs down over here, and this section that wraps around to the front does not. So pretend this isn't here because I think I sewed it on incorrectly, but you've got the back section on the, well, it's going to be on the left when it's on the outside, the right when it's on the outside, and then this thing coming around to the front, and these do not match up. So when I put this 1-inch hem on here and sew 1/8 of an inch or whatever from the edge of that, I don't have a consistent seam here. So, and I looked at this and I said, okay, so what, did I do something wrong? And I did not. My pieces here are the coat back. I've got the coat front. Yeah, these are my two pieces. I've got the coat back. This is the section that has the pleat in it. So this section connects to the coat front. And it's a little bit hard to tell because these are not pinned exactly together. I'm going to pin these exactly together. Oops. When the coat front is aligned with the coat back, I can pin this back on the wall. This is what I do with my patterns when I'm working on this. You know, I align those darts. These parts, these two line up, but on the lining, so on the coat, on the suede that I did, the coat front and the coat back line up, but on the lining, the coat front lining is about 1 inch shorter than the coat back, and it's about 1 inch shorter than the coat back that I was supposed to make of the fabric and of the lining. So the lining just is shorter, and you can see here, this is backwards. I'll turn this back around so you can see. I was lining up the darts. But the cutting line for B is there, and it creates a piece of lining for the front section that's 1 inch shorter than the lining that is on the back. So I'm at the point now where I'm trying to put this lining together, and I'm trying to put this hemline on the bottom of the lining, but these do not line up this way. I can't sew these together this way as the instructions instruct me to. Oh, and actually, you know what? This was correct. So this is the front coming around to the back. So the pleat's here in the back. I'm going to have another pleat in this section that we can't see because it's wrapped around, and then another front section. And then I'm going to put that little strip with the interfacing. So that section that I thought I did incorrectly, that's fine. That's okay. But these should have a 1 inch hem, and I just can't do that. So I guess I'm just going to take the hem up all the way around, and it's going to be substantially shorter than the hemline that I'm going to have for the material for the suede down here. But the instructions and the way that it had me cut it out, they just don't work. So there's a couple missing pieces from the Mad Hatter that are important for the costume. There's one part that's just kind of dopey, the flaps, and you can't tell because it's this dark purple material, so you can't even really tell from their sample picture what the costume looks like. And the cutting diagram and the way that this sews together, just for this part, does not seem to quite work. And I'll work around it, but I've never had a pattern. This is probably the 6th pattern that I've made for Halloween. I've never had a pattern that really didn't seem to work. Every other time I've worked on it and I've said, okay, I did something wrong. I needed to look at it again, measure twice, cut once. And I found if there's been a problem, it's been my error. But I don't think that that's the case here. I think this is actually a problem with the pattern. There might have been another one that I had earlier as well, but that part I'm just going to have to work around somehow, and I don't know exactly what I'm going to do or how I'm going to do it. So that's it for this video. turned out to be a longer one after all, but those are the challenges that I have with this costume. The current challenges that I found with the costume. Still, I think it's going to turn out pretty nice. I'm going to show this jacket one more time. Oh, right. So I mentioned that I put pockets on instead of putting on the flaps. I think the pockets look quite nice. I use my sewing machine. I mentioned I'm using, I think I might have mentioned this. I'm using a purple sort of contrasted material thread for my buttonholes. And I'm using that same thread. I use that same thread to do a little bit of detailing on this pocket. So I used sort of a little bit of a decorative stitch here across this top line of the pocket. And then I did what I believe are some of the right stitches to put the pocket together. There's this zigzag stitch to reinforce the seam here, just a straight stitch along here. This is also double stitched. I made the pocket first by sewing down this top section with this leaf pattern, then stitching all along the edge to close up the seam along it. And then when I put it on the jacket, I used the reinforced pocket stitch, leading it to just a straight stitch going along here. So I've got a double, sort of a double stitch along there that looks a little bit funny, but I think it's okay. And I think it looks kind of good, I think. And I like the way that the color contrasts with it, and I like that the way that's going to match up with the buttonholes that I'm going to make too. I'll need to put a whole bunch of buttonholes on this. These are going to be cool. This collar is going to kind of pucker up like this and button into the collar a bit like that. This is going to button down. This is going to button down. And then there's going to be buttons going across to seal it. Buttons just decorative on the outside. Maybe there's buttonholes that go on both sides. I'm not sure. But there's going to be buttonholes along here that seal this up. And then the front of this skirt is going to have an interfacing piece as well. So yeah, it's looking pretty good and almost done. So hope you enjoyed this video. Hope this is helping you with some costumes someday, somebody. Bye. Have a good day.